Lexie Hull didn't raise her voice, didn't taunt, didn't celebrate early. She just erased Paige Bueckers in real time, while the entire Unrivaled world watched in disbelief.
Island and guard your yard and keep people in front of you, but at the same time, these are the best women in the world and you're competing against them, so that's a lot different for sure.
Hey, Paige, you better take that compliment from Candace. She don't say much.
This game did not announce itself as historic at tip-off, but it ended as one of the most dissected performances Unrivaled has seen so far. On the surface, it looked like a classic duel, Chelsea Gray detonating offensively for Rose, Paige Bueckers stacking points and playmaking for Breeze, and the scoreboard swinging violently possession to possession. But underneath the noise, something far more uncomfortable was unfolding, something that box scores were never designed to capture. Chelsea Gray went nuclear. 37 points in a 3-on-3 setting is not just impressive, it is borderline absurd. She bent defensive spacing, manipulated angles, and hit shots that felt demoralizing just to watch. It was magnet ball in its purest form, the kind of performance that usually becomes the only storyline anyone remembers. Except this time, it didn't. Because while Gray was torching the net, Paige Bueckers was being dragged into a defensive maze she could not solve, and Lexie Hull was the architect.
A third consecutive All-Star nod. All-League second team. Bueckers fadeaway swish. Oh yeah, she says. Welcome, Paige, to Unrivaled.
You know this is a fast-paced game in general.
Paige did not play poorly in the traditional sense. 15 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. Numbers that scream control, but numbers can lie when context gets violent. Paige hunted mismatches relentlessly, and when the floor tilted in her favor, she attacked without hesitation. When certain defenders checked in, the game slowed down for her, reads became clean, passes flowed, and Breeze looked inevitable. And then Lexie Hull stepped back onto the floor, and the entire rhythm collapsed. This was not about speed or strength. Paige is not a blow-by guard who lives on pure burst. Her game is surgical, screens, angles, manipulation, timing. She wins with intelligence. That is exactly why Lexie Hull is such a nightmare matchup for her. Hull thrives on anticipation, on reading the second option before the first one finishes unfolding. Every screen Paige came off carried risk. Every pass had an invisible hand waiting in the lane. Every decision took half a second longer, and in 3-on-3 basketball, half a second is an eternity.
We told you she loves to do that, getting down with the English.
Final minute, first quarter. Breeze has caught the momentum, wind at its sails as Bueckers leans and scores. Vintage.
There was a visible shift. Paige stopped attacking freely and started calculating. Her assist to turnover balance flipped not because she became careless, but because the margin for error evaporated. Hull recovered through blitzes that should have worked. She slid back into passing lanes that were supposed to be open. She materialized on inbounds like a bad memory you cannot shake. These were not highlight steals. These were momentum murders. Now take a quick break and hit that smash button along with the like button. I'd really appreciate it, my friends, because this is where the conversation gets uncomfortable for people who rely solely on scoring to evaluate impact. Lexie Hull shot terribly from deep for most of the game. Her offensive limitations were loud, obvious, and frustrating, and yet when the game tightened, when everything came down to one possession, she hit the shot that mattered. Not because she suddenly found her rhythm, but because players like Hull live for chaos, and chaos favors preparation.
Hold on, team. Area Fenn, an all-star in her first pro campaign, looks to carry it over. Bueckers finds Brink. Bueckers Brink bucket for Breeze. She is a cheek.
The real shock is how thoroughly this game reframed Paige Bueckers' night. Every second Hull was off the floor, Paige looked unstoppable. She attacked mismatches with veteran precision, abused space, and controlled tempo like the elite guard she is. The moment Hull returned, the floor shrank. Paige still made plays, but they came with cost. Turnovers crept in, risk replaced flow, confidence turned into caution. This was systematic. Hull didn't gamble wildly. She baited and showed just enough help to invite passes, then closed windows before they fully opened. She turned every possession into a question mark, and eventually, Paige started playing not to lose control instead of playing to dominate. The viral context makes this even more brutal. Before the game, a podcast discussion casually suggested Hull could defend Paige. The silence that followed was interpreted as doubt. That clip circulated and people laughed it off. By the end of this game, that silence looked prophetic. Paige did not get embarrassed. She got tested in a way that lingered. fingers. What makes Lexie Hull so hard to evaluate is exactly what this game exposed. She is not a traditional lockdown defender who erases one player and stays home. She is a defensive playmaker who infects the entire possession. She forces second guesses. She turns clean actions into messy ones. She creates turnovers that do not always get credited correctly. Deflections become rebounds. Tips become broken plays. The stat sheet shrugs. The scoreboard swings. There was a sequence that perfectly captured her value. A missed shot, Hull crashes, secures the rebound, kicks out for a three. On the next possession, she jumps a passing lane, forces a turnover. The ball swings again, another bucket. 6 points generated without her taking a single shot. That is power that does not show up in usage rate. This is why front offices lose sleep over players like Lexie Hull. On one hand, she feels irreplaceable. There is no substitute for her instincts, her timing, her willingness to turn every loose ball into a personal insult. On the other hand, her offensive inconsistencies are real. Over a long season, they matter. Over a single high-leverage game, they disappear behind the wreckage she creates. Unrivalled magnifies this tension. With more space, fewer bodies, and higher usage, defensive flaws should be exposed. Instead, Hull thrived. If she can cause this level of disruption in 3-on-3, where spacing favors offense, what does that say about her value in 5-on-5 playoff basketball? Chelsea Gray deserves her flowers. 37 points does not happen by accident. She controlled the emotional temperature of the game and kept Rose alive when Breeze threatened to pull away. But even Gray's brilliance does not fully explain the outcome. Rose won because Breeze could not stabilize its engine, and that instability started with Hull. This game also cracked open a larger financial question that teams are quietly panicking about. Players like Hull are terrifying in free agency. Someone will watch this tape and convince themselves she is the missing piece. Someone will talk themselves into paying max level money for defensive chaos. And when that happens, the gamble becomes existential. Do you build around this impact, or do you get burned by its limitations? Phoenix knows this dilemma too well. They cannot afford everyone. They must choose between different kinds of value. Hull versus offensive firepower, defense versus spacing, chaos versus consistency. This performance just tipped the scales, whether they want to admit it or not. There is also a subtle league-wide implication. The WNBA is becoming more guard-driven, more spacing-oriented, more reliant on decision-making under pressure. In that environment, defenders who disrupt rhythm rather than just contest shots become exponentially more valuable. Hull does not just guard players, she guards ideas. Paige Bueckers will be fine. Everybody knows she is elite, and this game does not define her. But it will live in the scouting reports. It will be referenced quietly. It will shape matchups. Because every star has defenders who bother them, and Hull just proved she is one of Paige's. This is not about humiliation, it is about respect earned the hard way. Paige did not fold, she adjusted, she survived. But she did not control the game the way she usually does. And that is the highest compliment you can give a defender. Unrivalled was designed to showcase stars. Instead, this game reminded everyone that stars still need oxygen, and defenders like Lexie Hull know exactly how to take the air out of the room. If one defender can flip an elite guard's entire rhythm in a space-built league, how much is that chaos really worth? And after this game, who's brave enough to let Lexie Hull walk away? Let us know your views in the comments below.